Welcome to today's episode of The Power of Reinvention. Here we talk with my guests about the dreams, the visions, and the passions that individuals have every day and dare to explore them. Whether it's business or personal, you're entitled to live the life that you want, and no matter what the circumstances, you have the power to create success, fulfill your dreams, and live with passion. That's what I'm talking about. So dare greatly. Happy reinventing, folks. Let's do this. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Power of Reinvention. You know, I say this so often, and I think this time it comes with just a different perspective in that I am super excited for my guest today. Lorey, hi.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for having me.
You know, I don't know if we have even done the math on when the last time was that we got to speak to each other. But when I saw your name pop up in a text thread with a whole bunch of peers in our business,
Yeah.
I saw your name and it was such an automatic, oh my goodness, we need to reconnect. And I think that is so indicative of the story of our lives, right?
Yes.
You meet someone through somebody at some place and you have this instant connection. You and I are so aligned in the worlds we live in and what we do. And then you kind of go, wait, how have all these years gone by that we haven't spent time talking, hanging out, doing business?
Yes.
I thought, what a perfect excuse to invite you onto this incredible Women's Series podcast that we're doing this month and now spilling into April.
Yes.
To be a part of this conversation. So thank you for making the time. I really appreciate reconnecting.
Of course, as well. Thank you.
So for those who don't know Lorey, I am going to share a little background before we jump into this conversation. She is the founder and chief brand officer of Zequity. Is that correct? Zequity or
Yes.
Zequity? Zequity
Zequity
Marketing.
Yeah.
A strategic consultancy that helps organizations define clarity, consistency, and purpose, aligning leadership and building enduring connections with their audiences. Before launching Zequity, Lorey led brand divisions of Disney, Fox Sports, and the NFL, guiding iconic brand transformations that modernized the narrative and helped shape the modern media landscape. Now, through Zequity, she works with lifestyle brands, media companies, founders, and impact-driven organizations to craft authentic stories that drive growth. Lorey has built her career on transformation and reinvention, driven by clarity of purpose, resilience through change, and the courage to evolve with intention. My kindred spirit.
Yes.
I love it. I feel like, are there things that we're going to start talking about that aren't for public consumption here in our worlds?
Maybe.
But hey, all the
Let's
power
hope
to us. People always say they want to be a fly on the wall. Well, welcome to our wall. Okay, this is it. And, as I said, I'm so excited, A, that we're doing it in the context of a podcast, but B, specifically as we are celebrating Women's History Month and the International Women's Day, which was earlier in the month. The business that you and I are in and have been for so many years, I think we're going to stop putting numbers on it, but speaks volumes to, I think, the change and the reinventions we have seen in our worlds and our industries. So I'd love to take a moment and actually take you back in time.
Okay.
I'd love to know a little about who was little Lorey. See yourself, it's hard to know when you're a little girl that such a world that we live in and what we do exists. But, tell me a little bit about your journey and what got you to where you are. And you've clearly had some incredible corporate big gigs, but what came before that? And who was little Lorey?
Yeah. So little Lori, let's see. To answer your first question, I never saw my career taking the path that it did. It certainly was not a linear path. And the younger me really wanted to start out. I wanted to be a writer. So when I went to school, I got a degree in fashion merchandising and I minored in marketing and journalism because retail was what I knew. And I wanted to write for big fashion magazines. And I think life just had a different path for me. It really never materialized in that way. I would freelance, and I grew up in Detroit, so the joint operating agreement happened at that time. So the journalists were being laid off left and right, and I ended up just taking a huge risk and moving out to California. And my career took off, kind of from there. I
Yeah.
landed in the Nestle headquarters, and I was running chocolate and confections, also
Nice.
near and dear to my heart,
Nice, I
chocolate
know, I
and
could do that one.
confections. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how many people actually really start off, in one field and then stay in that field, right? So I did stay a little bit within the media landscape. I worked for the LA Times, and I was running marketing, and it just sort of evolved, from there. So after the LA Times, this was a kind of a defining moment. I remember I was working out and I was reading Adweek because of course that's what I would do, is bury
Yep.
myself in the trades. And I saw a position for Disney Channel and I thought, all right, this sounds cool. And I had no television background at all, and I lobbed in my application. As by a weird fluke and chance, I met somebody who was running programming at
Yeah.
Disney Channel, and I said, "Oh, I just applied there," and he said, "Give me your resume," right? And so I did, and the day that I was offered the job, I also received a rejection letter in the mail on the same day from the resume that I had lobbed in.
Right,
And
right.
it just goes to
Just
show
goes to
you.
show you.
Yes, it's kind of who you know, and they took a chance on me, and it catapulted my career really in on the television side of media, and it's just been, a pleasure ever since. It's really been a journey.
No, but I love that, just that even nuance of what you just said right there. I mean, how many people we see it every day. We've been watching it for 40 years as people are applying for jobs. And I spend my life mentoring young kids, literally from my own kids to all my friends' kids to people that I know. And I'm like, bring it on because these kids need a leg up. So do
They
the
do.
adults, frankly, more adults than
Yes.
anything. A lot of peers and friends in the world who, in this ever changing landscape, and we'll kind of get to that in a little bit, but it is those personal connections and not being afraid to ask, not being afraid to reach out to people and say, hey, I'm thinking of going for this job. Who do you know? I mean, I get these
Yes.
asks all the time and nothing makes me happier. So bring it on, people. I think that we just have to be there for each other because, a resume and a pile of paper and a computer isn't always going to get the job done.
1,000%. My father used to always say to me, "If you don't ask, the answer will always be no." And that was good advice. I give that advice to my kids, and I always made a commitment that if there was a young, college age, student or even high school, if they had the actual courage to reach out and ask for help, I'm gonna take those calls
Yeah,
every
all
single
day.
time, all day long. I mean, not all day long, but
Right, right,
you
right.
know what I'm saying.
I do, I do.
I make the time because I remember when I was in that same situation. I think I was a little different. I kind of put those blinders on and I just went for it.
Well, I think you know what? I think a lot of us did because we didn't know any better and
That's
it was
right.
the only way. And now there feels
That's
like
right.
there are so many outs. And respectfully to our younger generation, they're not willing to I don't know if they're not willing. I think that it's daunting for them because they're being told today that, it's not the way it used to be. And you don't just graduate and go get a job. Now it's much more difficult and it's not a
Yes.
linear path. And therefore it's kind of overwhelming. They're like, do I go left? Do I go right? Do I become a consultant, use AI and work from home? Option A, that kids are thinking that way.
Of course they
Versus like
are.
I'm going for the corporate job and I'm going to work up the way up my corporate ladder. I have an intern program here at our company and I constantly had 3, 4, 5 interns in here year round. And it's fascinating because when they get out of here or they want to move on to something else, they know what they're doing. And I
Yes.
know who I want to hire. I want to hire someone that's had that experience,
Yes.
but it's
Yes.
a very different world than it used to be when we entered.
Absolutely. And I think it's not even just young people coming up. I think it's people, who have been senior leaders and senior executives now who have experienced that crunch of the consolidation, especially in our business, that are now trying to reinvent themselves and trying to get out there. And it's a whole new skill set. I
Yes.
mean, marketing is no longer, in my eyes, it's no longer what marketing used to be. It's now tapping into what research used to be and data and all the numbers and harnessing that first. And, and now it's algorithms and trying to find your audiences. And it's the same, but it's so different, you know?
So, question to you on that.
Yeah.
When in all of these corporate jobs that you had, did you start to really recognize that? I mean,
Oh
as a
gosh.
marketer, because sure, it was out there, it was kind of like the bean counters or the data processing people in another room that you never talked to, or maybe got a piece of paper and said, here's the net demos, here's the net, numbers. But you're right. Now it is very much a part of our world and the way we
Yes.
function. But when did you start to realize that and go, oh, wow, A, I better acquire some new skills.
Mhm.
B, this is not the job I thought it was. I don't want to be in that anymore because my skill set or superpower is X. I don't want it to be B,
Yeah.
you know?
So I have always been sort of a data and research nutter. So I've always attached myself to the research
That's great.
departments. So I think, that natural, reinvention it felt very comfortable to me. But marketing, I mean, to be a CMO today, you really need to have all of those skills. And research and data is the cornerstone of that. My sweet spot was always, like I said, I started off in journalism. It's always been about the storytelling. And so, I truly believe marketing is what brings them into the top of the funnel, but branding is what keeps them there. It's that emotional connection, it's that narrative, it's that, community that you build around the brand. And that's really the strategy that feeds the marketing to then get them into the funnel. So, everything kind of dovetails. And I think that the modern day CMO has to wear multiple hats. You've got to be a branding person, a marketing person, a data person, and an acquisition person, a growth. I mean, it's all of it.
Storytelling,
Of
social
storytelling, of
media, right?
social
Right. No,
publicity, all of it. It really has evolved and become quite a jack of all trades, so to speak.
and at
Yeah.
what point in your career did you say, okay, I'm kind of done with the corporate thing? Was it an invitation into the world of entrepreneurship? Was it a kick in the tush that sent you into that world? What was that pivotal
I,
moment for
you know,
you?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think that I recognized that I was sitting on this landmine of all of this knowledge. I've been from the boardroom to the locker room to, everything in between. And I just really wanted to share my knowledge in the process, with either smaller companies or larger media companies who knew that I had that inside track and that I could help to guide those brands. So it wasn't like one day I decided I'm going to do, consulting. It was kind of this path that, when I entered into nonprofit, I realized I could really make a difference and help other people to make a difference. And so that was really the catalyst that kind of sent me off on my own and to hang my own shingle outside of the proverbial building, so to
Right.
speak. Yeah.
Of that. And
So
were there folks in your life that at the time you could turn to and go, what do you think? Am I crazy? I mean, I remember very dear friends who were climbing the corporate ladder 20 years ago, not even 15 years ago, coming to me and, having run a business for 37 years, I was always the CEO and president of my own company, whatever
yes.
that meant. I think of myself at 25, being that CEO. But 15 some odd years ago, with friends sort of in that mid tier about to potentially become VPs, CMOs as they were building their careers. And they'd come to me and say, you are so lucky you're getting to do what you want, when you want, how you want. And I'm looking at them going, wow, you've all got expense accounts and
Exactly.
salaries that are secure. And I'm sitting there like going, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to turn the lights on or have to let half my staff
Yeah.
go in 3 months because I don't know where the next business is coming from, and living on that, that seesaw of life, which I have loved all my life. But, there's a reality to it. What is my question in this? I don't know, like that journey for you. Did you feel like there were moments as you got into it where you thought, okay, I'm a little crazy? And that was it? Who did you turn to in your life and say, am I nuts to be doing this? Or did you
Yeah.
just kind of forge ahead and
I I
didn't
think
matter?
I think when I was younger and earlier in my career, it was just full speed ahead. I don't know that I ever really, did any sort of check-ins with anybody that was steering me in the right direction. I just love what I do, and I've always loved what I do. And the great part about being in these larger organizations is that I always somehow ended up in these launch modes, launching a network or launching a new, digital division or, whatever it was. I mean, I
It
think
was pushing the envelope
it
always.
was
Yeah.
it was propelling me forward, the
Yeah.
projects that I was doing. So, do I have one person that I check in with? No, but I've got an incredible circle of women. And, I joined Chief early on. And so I was, with that organization for, I think, 4 years. And just the
It's
women in the,
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
just the women in the cohorts were so diverse and so different, and each brought this incredible perspective, and it was a safe place where you could kind of kick around ideas. So later in my career, I think that that really helped, and just the connections, that we have, the
Yeah.
connections around us.
They're
I'm
powerful.
really, I'm a girl's girl, so to
Right.
speak. I want to help women and younger women and see folks succeed, whatever that path is. I don't have the answers. Nobody really has the answers. What's right or wrong
But
for
that is
people
the answer. That right there
is the
is the
answer.
answer.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? I
I
mean, I
guess.
just got
Yeah.
goosebumps because I think that's what everybody needs to hear. There is no right or wrong. There is
Yes.
no way forward that is the wrong path or the right path. It's your path.
Yes.
And your path takes you to where you next end up.
Yeah.
And we learn from it, we grow from it, we, pivot, we divert. I mean, I talk in the book about having, a destination. It's like your GPS, right? And you may detour and it may take 5 minutes to get there. It may take 20 years to get there, but it is
Yeah.
your journey and your journey is your journey. And I think it's special to recognize that. And I talk often about the need to really just stop and listen to ourselves and trust
Yes.
ourselves more. And it
Yes.
sounds like that is what you have always been able to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, that inner voice is always sort of that, that angel and devil sitting on your shoulders, and you have to choose which voice you're going to listen to. Taking risks was always, I think, maybe not easier for me, but I knew I had a great support system so that if and that gave me, kind of the courage to take those risks, knowing that if it didn't work out, I had that, to fall back on. I mean, I came from an entire lineage of doctors. I wasn't just moving into like the family business, right? And so while they were talking about, you know, angioplasty and surgeries and what have you, I'm like in the corner, like, writing and thinking about like Pantone colors and
Oh my God,
things
I
like that,
love
and so
this.
it
Right.
just, so my path really wasn't like, "Okay, somebody's gonna help me along." Resiliency has always been sort of this through line for me. You just kinda pick yourself up and go. I mean, I moved across the country. I knew nobody,
Yeah.
when I came
How
here,
old
and
were
it
you when you
was
moved here?
I was a little bit older. I was 27, and I always tell
And what
people,
was the reason? Sorry, what was the reason to move?
yeah, I
Just 'cause?
well, no, there were a few reasons. I coming from Detroit, the business was automotive, and I really didn't see a lot of women in that business. And I loved the advertising business, but boy, back then, it's certainly automotive was certainly not
You didn't have
sexy. It
Mary
was
Bear at the head of GM those
no,
days, that's for sure.
no, that's for sure. It was, 3 pages of bullet points to sell a car, and that just didn't excite me, and I knew that if I took a risk and I came across the country, that I could find a creative community, that it would just
I
work
got you.
out, and I mean, my
Got
god, if I had to do it again today, it just, and then there was also, the scraping the windshield with the credit card with an unexpected snowstorm that kinda kicked me in the butt and said,
Yeah.
"What are you still doing here?"
Right, right. Okay,
So,
that would get me out of there pretty
yeah, for
quickly.
sure.
But that's incredible, and I love it. You are touching on so many of the things that I think point to the resilience and
Yes,
creating our own destiny and having the courage to just, really hear yourself, that self conversation
yes,
of this is not where I want to be. Now I can choose to stay here and then wake up one day and go, wow, what could I have done with my life? Or why didn't I? Or look at everybody else and say, why aren't I doing that?
yes,
or you get up and go and you take a little risk. And look, it's riskier to not lean into something that you want to explore. And
I
it
think
feels
so.
like you've always had that spirit and that ability to drive you.
Yeah.
I love that. Are there any words of wisdom? I mean, so much of what you're saying are words of wisdom, but to the women coming up in the ranks, the women who are out there as we celebrate Women's History Month,
Yes.
that you could impart some nugget of what you feel is going to help them in their journeys.
Yeah, I think take the leap, believe in yourself. I mean, it all sounds so generic, but it really is true. And don't be afraid to ask for help, along the way. I really think that, opportunities can present themselves or you can make the opportunities for yourself. So if you see something, go for it, and don't be afraid to fail. I mean, failure is what creates success, and I live by that
Truth.
motto,
Right.
evolve or die. And I think that with the fast pace of how the technology is moving, I would say that constant game of reinvention, if you're smart and motivated, you can reinvent anytime, but just make yourself, present and relevant. Make sure that you're relevant. And
Said.
yeah, it's listen, there's a lot of work for women to do, to continue
There
to have those
is.
seats at the table, but we've come so far,
No, I
right?
couldn't agree more, and I love, like, that message that you just shared. That was a very drop mic moment.
Yeah,
And then thank you for that because these are the
sure.
nuggets. These are, like you said, it may sound obvious, it may sound cliche, but you and I, we are living proof of that.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
love that. And, even in my book, I think of all the incredible humans in there, men and women, but the women's stories who've talked about their career paths and the things that they have taken on to learn and grow. And to your point, stay relevant and always have a reinvention in your back pocket and just
Yeah.
be prepared to leap. And you can't afford to not take the risk
Right.
and not fail and grow from it because that, as we said earlier, is your journey and
Yes.
it's all good. You just got to
Yes.
kind of figure out, okay, and what will tomorrow bring?
Yes.
So thank you
And
for
some
stating that.
Yeah, and listen, sometimes those bumps in the road that feel like, "What am I gonna do now?" are often the things that end up really shaping your career,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
go back and I think about how media has really evolved, and, I mean, I've lived through that transformation and that change management and living through ambiguity when the whole office feels like we're gonna get laid off, which a lot of times, it does, it happens. So, I mean, between a company sale, a company merger, a department reorg, all of those things. What comes out the other side is the magic. It's
Yeah.
the experience, the
Well said.
resilience,
Yeah.
it's a perspective. I think perspective is super important when you're kind of navigating this ship that's always changing. And I think you have to listen to that inner gut, the pathways, creating real pathways, for yourself and for other women as well. Don't leave a woman alone at the table, it's forward, I think would be my best advice. And I think the younger generation is better at that than
Think
we
you're
were.
1,000% right. I
Yes.
mean, I always say, and you could probably relate to this, there were no women's groups when we started.
No,
Nobody was
no,
cheering you
no,
on. Nobody was saying,
nobody.
you can do this, you can't do that, you should be asking for more, you should be asking for less.
That's
The
right.
conversations were not happening. And people like you and I just sort of leaned in and said, hey, this is what I want. This is who I am. I'm making it happen.
Yes.
And I talk about this all the time. The groups and the conversations that exist for young women today are extraordinary.
Amazing.
And
They're
it's
amazing.
incredible. And we are seeing this beautiful, beautiful camaraderie between women now. There are no mean girls. If there are, we're not seeing it. That's not the thing.
Right.
We are seeing a level of friendship and sisterhood and camaraderie in the workplace, out of the workplace that is more
Yes.
beautiful than anything I think we've ever witnessed in
Yeah.
previous generations. And it's pretty damn special because I think we're all recognizing how fabulous we are. And yes, we are.
No, it's true. It's true because, I mean, I was surrounded. I've been in male dominated industries my
Yeah.
entire career. Most of my bosses have been male. I mean, a few females peppered within there. But there was nobody showing you the way or, bounce ideas off of somebody. It was get in there, pull your bootstraps up and just keep going. And at that time, when I was I mean, listen, a piece of advice that a man gave me once, he said, there's no room for emotion in business. And now everybody's coming to work as their authentic selves and sort of like,
Right.
letting it all hang out. And it's just very different. There was a mode of what professionalism meant, back
Right.
then,
Oh,
which
no.
is very different now.
Yeah.
It was how
Oh,
do you
you're
show up in
so
the
right.
world,
So
right?
right. So fascinating. I mean, we could do hours on that topic because
Probably.
it is fascinating. And I will say that there are obviously incredible male counterparts in our world,
Yes.
men who, as to your point, have given us advice, whether it was good, accurate, not, whatever. But I think it is also so important to make sure that the men are in the rooms that we're talking
Yes.
about
Yes.
and that we are allowing them access to understand the dynamic and the value proposition and the power, not in a controlling way, but just all that we can do together. And the more they're in the room and we don't segregate the rooms, the better we
Yes.
all are.
1,000%.
Right.
A
And
thousand
I think
percent.
that's really important for us not to lose sight of. I think that is just so important for everybody.
Yeah. I have learned so much in my career from just incredibly generous and smart, intelligent men that have really helped to support. Well, I mean, not everyone is,
No,
hearts and flowers and,
well,
they
we
don't
learn
come
from
to the
that
table.
too.
You learn from
We totally learn from
exactly. You
that.
took the words right out of my mouth because, I always tell my kids, I'm like, tell me what went wrong today. Not what did you do today? Tell me something great. It's like, what did you struggle with today? How did you, bleep up, today?
Yeah,
Or, whatever it is, because it's those moments that you can say to yourself, how do I perceive this? How do I turn this around? How do I make it good? And what lessons did you learn from it? Because
exactly.
I mean, I've had some really crappy leadership,
Yeah,
experiences. And I think that for me, I always said to myself, okay, that didn't feel right or good. But now I know what I don't want to be for other people.
exactly.
And so those moments all help to shape you,
Yeah.
right? And catapult you forward.
I love that.
So,
Lori,
I
there's
mean, that was,
so much in this, really.
yeah,
I'm so appreciative of this conversation, and it's reminding me of the connection you and I have, the similarity. I mean, if anybody's looking at the video of us, I mean, we look like separated at birth right here. We're dressed the same. We've got the same glasses, the same headphones, the same hair color.
right?
So there's the visual for those who are listening to the audio version, but
Exactly.
they'll see in whatever video clips are out there. But I think that you and I have a lot more to talk about, and
Yes,
I'm really excited. I'm excited that you shared some really, really insightful things here today, and I'm happy that we got to have this conversation, and I'm excited for all that's still to come for you, for me, for us together.
yes, yes.
So thank you for being here.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for doing what you're doing and giving a platform for reinvention. This is the business we're in, right? Branding
Every
is all
day.
about reinvention, so thank
Every
you,
day.
Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you. On that topic, so we're not done, I will just expand on that. And you're right. Like we're seeing the evolution, especially post-COVID, AI, the openness. And I think you and I both will say that there is a very quick turnaround now that we never used to see how quickly people, companies are willing to move much faster now
Yes,
than they were. A, because they have to, B, because they understand it's not that difficult, and C, that if you really apply yourself, great things can happen quickly.
yes, yes,
Reinvention is at the core of what so many companies are going through, so many brands are needing to do.
1,000%.
It's a fascinating time in our industry,
Yeah,
actually, for that.
it's it's actually the fun part for me is the complete reinvention. I think, with every company I've ever been at, I was always there at this crazy,
Crossroads,
yeah,
right,
just a
right.
crossroad of reinvention. I mean, these heritage companies who have been doing it the same way, who need to broaden out their audiences and bring in new audiences or just modernize their voice, it needs to happen. I've had this very charmed career, and I hear a siren happening
Yes.
here, and
I make that on Wilshire Boulevard.
yes, yes, yes. Well, you're in the hub there for sure. I mean, listen, I've had these incredible experiences to reinvent, and I think now personal branding is also taking, the center stage with all of the creators that are out there and this creator economy and YouTube kind of taking over what used to be how we used to have television and how we would consume entertainment is very, very different now. And I think personal branding is also, it's taking that center stage. And to be able to really peel back the layers and articulate the story, whether it be the brand or whether it's your personal brand, is so essential, that skill now. And listen, the brand discovery workshops are my favorite part. It's.
Yeah, it's really a precious time for us in what we're doing. And, it's fun that all these years later, we're both glowing, we're smiling, and we're still having fun with it. It's
Yes,
crazy.
yes,
People say that to
yes.
me all the time. Like, you just always look so happy. You're having so much fun. I'm like, how could you not be?
Exactly.
It's
If it's not fun,
fascinating.
don't do it, right?
That's
You gotta
right.
love what you do, like, really
Yeah.
love what you do,
Yeah.
and it shows, and it's sort of that contagious spirit, that, when you really do love what you do,
Yeah.
it shows.
I love this. Well, Lori, now I think we have to wrap up, unfortunately,
Yes, let's
but
do it.
thank you again, again, again. Look forward to chatting with you a whole lot more. I know it's
Yes.
happening. So, again, for those who are listening, thank you for tuning in. There is a lot more if you go to the reinventionexchange.com. 5 years of blogs and content and virtual chats with some of the most amazing humans across the world, across the spectrum of industries and life. So if you're looking for a dose of inspiration and motivation, it's a good place to go. And everybody, just wishing you a very, very happy reinvention in your life. And Lori, thank you again.
Thank you, Kathy. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to The Power of Reinvention. If you enjoyed this episode, please head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Wouldn't mind a 5-star review. It would be greatly appreciated. Also, be sure to visit thereinventionexchange.com to share your reinvention stories, suggest a guest, join the newsletter mailing list, get access to my book, which is called Reinvent Your Life, What Are You Waiting For? And discover fantastic bonus content with my blogs, and listen in to the Reinvention Virtual Chat series. Don't forget to join me next week for another episode. Please share with a friend, and thank you for listening. Happy reinventing.